let's talk about something that absolutely no one asked for. A Rambo prequel starring Noah Centineo. Yes, according to Variety, Millennium Media is moving forward with a film that attempts to tell the origin story of John Rambo. And I have to ask, why? Not rhetorically. I genuinely want to know what boardroom, what executive, what algorithm spat out the idea that the best way to honor one of cinema's most mythic action heroes was to strip him of his mystery and retrofit his trauma into a marketable origin story. Because that's what this is. It's not a tribute, it's not a reinvention, it's a product. Now, let's be fair. Sylvester Stallone is 78 years old. He's not going to be jumping off cliffs or mowing down jungle mercenaries forever. And yes, we've already seen the limits of aging action heroes. Look no further than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Harrison Ford was 80, and while the film had its moments, the suspension of disbelief was completely gone. Even fans of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that released in 2008, when Ford was in his mid-60s, were already questioning whether Indy could still crack the whip. I remember articles from 2004, back when Indiana Jones 4 was first announced, asking if Ford could even pull off a fourth film. That was over 20 years ago at this point. So yes, Stallone's time as Rambo is winding down, but here's the thing. Rambo already had an ending, a real one, and it wasn't just any ending. It was crafted in the wake of another masterful conclusion. Because before 2008's Rambo, Stallone had already done something remarkable with Rocky Balboa in 2006. That film wasn't just a comeback, it was closure. Rocky was older, wiser, and no longer chasing glory. He was confronting grief, legacy, and the passage of time. And Stallone didn't just act in it, he wrote and directed it. He gave Rocky a dignified send-off. Many fans even say it's one of their favorite entries in the series. That's why Creed worked, because Rocky's story was done. He could step into the mentor role, become the new Mick, and let Adonis Creed take the spotlight. Rocky wasn't the protagonist anymore, he was the emotional anchor, and it worked beautifully. Stallone even earned an Oscar nomination for a supporting role in Creed, but by Creed 3, he was out of the picture entirely, only credited as a producer, because the story had moved on. Rocky had served his purpose, and that's exactly what Stallone did with Rambo in 2008. He brought the character home. He did for Rambo what he did for Rocky. First Blood made him a fugitive, Part 2 kept him in Asia, Rambo 3 was about loyalty to Troutman, and then 2008's Rambo finally brought him back to Arizona, not Leavenworth, not exile, home. That was the arc, that was the myth. Then came Rambo Last Blood, an unnecessary sequel that felt like a studio trying to squeeze one last drop from the franchise. And I'll be honest, I never watched it, and I probably never will, because I already saw the ending. I saw the character come full circle. I saw the myth conclude. Why reopen a story that was already closed? And now, instead of letting the legacy rest, we're getting a prequel that no one asked for, a prequel that risks dismantling everything that made Rambo iconic in the first place. Let's talk about prequels for a minute, because this isn't just about Rambo. This is about a broader trend in Hollywood, one that's been accelerating for years. The obsession with origin stories, the need to explain everything, the compulsion to fill in every blank space with backstory, trauma, and exposition. We've seen this play out across genres. Solo, a Star Wars story, tried to explain Han Solo's swagger. It bombed. Furiosa tried to give depth to a character who was already compelling through mystery and action. It bombed. Caprica tried to show us the world before Battlestar Galactica. It lasted one season, 18 episodes, and faded into obscurity. And then there's Rob Zombie's Halloween, a textbook example of how over-explaining a myth can kill it. Michael Myers wasn't scary because of his childhood trauma. He was scary because he was unknowable. Because he was the shape, the embodiment of evil. The moment you give him a backstory, you take away the fear. That's the risk with Rambo. Go back and watch First Blood. Rambo is a mythological figure. He's the wounded warrior, the outsider, the man who can't reintegrate into society. He got his own hero's journey. You don't explain that away with flashbacks and daddy issues. You don't turn him into a misunderstood teen with a buzz cut and a chip on his shoulder. And let's be honest, Noah Centineo? Really? I'm not here to bash the guy, but casting him as young Rambo feels like a studio trying to chase demographics, not authenticity. Rambo isn't a heartthrob. He's a haunted soul. He's not slick, he's raw. He's not charming, he's tragic. You don't cast Rambo like you're casting a CW pilot. So what's really going on here? This is corporatization, or as some call it, the McDonaldization of the film industry. The idea that if something sells, you just keep making more of it. Doesn't matter if it's good, doesn't matter if it's necessary, just slap the brand name on it and push it out. That's what this prequel feels like. A product, not a story, not a continuation, just a checkbox on a spreadsheet. Rambo is beloved, let's make more Rambo, start with the prequel, people will buy tickets, That's the logic. And it's not just Rambo, it's happening everywhere. Look at Lord of the Rings of Power. Look at Fantastic Beasts. Look at The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. All prequels. All trying to recapture magic by reverse engineering it. And most of them, forgettable. Because here's the truth. Prequels rarely work. They're almost always answering questions that didn't need answers. They're trying to fill in blanks that were more powerful left blank. They're trying to explain the myth instead of letting it breathe. But if the studio truly wanted to reboot Rambo, if they genuinely wanted to honor the character while making him relevant, they wouldn't make a prequel. They'd recontextualize him. Because Rambo isn't just an action hero. He's a product of a specific moment in American history. First Blood, the novel, was published in 1972, right at the tail end of the Vietnam War. And the film adaptation in 1982 didn't shy away from that context. It leaned into it. Rambo was a Green Beret, a Medal of Honor recipient, a man trained to pilot tanks and wage war, and when he came home, he couldn't even get a job parking cars. That's not just a line from the movie, it's the emotional climax. The final scene between Rambo and Troutman is a breakdown of a man who's been discarded by the country he served. And here's the tragic part. Not much has changed. Veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan have faced the same systemic neglect. PTSD, homelessness, bureaucratic red tape, it's all still there. The war may be different, but the aftermath is hauntingly familiar. So if you're rebooting Rambo today, you don't go backwards, you go forward. You make him a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan. You make him a product of the early 2000s, of the Surge, of Fallujah, of Kandahar, of Operation Iraqi Freedom, whatever you want to do. You tap into the same emotional core. A soldier trained for war, returned to a country that doesn't know what to do with him. A man shaped by trauma, alienation, and the machinery of violence. That's how you preserve the myth. You don't explain it. You translate it. And there's precedent for this. Look at The Manchurian Candidate. The original novel was written in 1959 during the height of the Cold War. The 1962 film adaptation starred Frank Sinatra and centered on Korean War veterans brainwashed by communists. But when the story was reimagined in 2004, it was updated to reflect the war on terror. Denzel Washington played a Gulf War veteran, and the enemy wasn't a foreign government. It was a multinational corporation manipulating politics from within. The myth was preserved, but the context was modernized. That's how you keep a story alive. Rambo could do the same. Imagine a reboot where he's a drone operator turned rogue, or a special forces soldier haunted by black ops missions, or a medic who saw too much and came home to nothing. That's the modern myth. That's the reboot that could work. But instead, we're getting a prequel that tries to retrofit the original myth into a teen drama, and that's not just disappointing, it's a missed opportunity. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a franchise that had a natural ending, a character that had a complete arc, and a studio that's choosing to ignore all of that in favor of brand recognition. It's predictable, it's unnecessary, and it's emblematic of a larger problem in Hollywood, the refusal to let stories end. But here's the thing. Myths don't die when you stop telling them. They die when you over-explain them, when you strip away their mystery, when you turn them into content. John Rambo was born from the trauma of Vietnam, from the disillusionment of a generation, from the silence that greeted returning soldiers, and that silence still echoes today. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, the wars changed, but the aftermath didn't. Veterans are still coming home to confusion, neglect, and isolation. So if you want to reboot Rambo, you don't cast a heartthrob and roll the clock backward. You move forward. You reimagine him as a product of the 21st century. You make him a drone pilot haunted by collateral damage, a special forces operator disillusioned by endless deployments, a medic who saw the cost of war in every broken body and came home to a country that doesn't want to hear about it. That's how you honor the myth. That's how you make it resonate. That's how you keep it alive. And we've seen it done before. The Manchurian Candidate was Cold War paranoia in 1962. By 2004, it was corporate manipulation and Gulf War trauma. The myth survived because it evolved. Rambo can do the same if the studios let him. But they won't, because mystery doesn't test well, closure doesn't sell, and ritual doesn't fit the algorithm. So we get prequels, we get reboots without reinvention, we get content instead of story. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this prequel will surprise us. Maybe it'll find a way to honor the myth without dismantling it. Maybe it'll be the exception to the rule. But history says otherwise. So let's open it up. I want to hear from you. Do you think a Rambo prequel can work? What would a meaningful continuation of the character look like to you? Should myths like Rambo be rebooted, reimagined, or just plainly left alone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading. And now, the bottom line. John Rambo was a myth. He's a symbol of post-war alienation, of trauma, of survival. He's not a brand. He's not a template. He's not a plug-and-play character. And the moment you try to explain him, you risk losing everything that made him powerful in the first place. If you want to keep him alive, don't rewind. Recontextualize. Until next time, keep your heroes mythic, your stories meaningful, and your franchises honest.